Welcome again back. Okay, so now you can see that I've all changed up. Earlier I did come live, right? So I do want to welcome every one of you who will be joining me. Okay, I can see people are starting to join in, and welcome again. So you know that we are doing a series of live events on March. That is once a week, where we have invited some fabulous, stunning, really wonderful women to join us and share their journey with us or inspire us. You know that at KN we don't just believe in just only being a jewelry brand. We also want to have a platform where all our viewers and followers and customers and KN family, KN women can, it's a platform where we can discuss about important matters to get motivated, get inspired, and inspire others. So if you've been following me, you know that today we have another special woman. So that's Shabnam, Professor Shabnam Koirala-Azad. I have been talking about her a bit in my posts. So she is actually the first woman dean of the University of San Francisco, which is, I think, amazing, right? Isn't that amazing? And she's a senior from school. And so I wanted to bring her here because even I haven't really touched base with her, and I want to hear her story as well. So we'll be doing a short, friendly, chit-chat kind of conversation. Let me see if Shabnam is in. Yes, okay, I see. I am so excited. Really had this conversation with Shabnam before, so I think I have just... Oh, hi Shabnam.
Hi.
This is so nice. Thank you.
Good to see you.
First, I want to thank you for agreeing to do this with us.
Of course. Thank you so much, Kajal, for inviting me. This is lovely.
Yeah. Give a very short introduction to our viewers here, and everybody say hello to Shabnam as well. You can see that I am very excited for today's talks, and yeah, without further ado, would you like to say something to start off, Shabnam?
Sure. It's first of all, it's wonderful to be here, Kajal. I think that the spirit in which we've organized this chat, which is, paying respect to Women's History Month and really trying to highlight the role that we play as women in society in general, but really then having these conversations to just learn from each other and hear each other's stories is really beautiful. So thank you so much for organizing. And I'm a big fan of yours and your creativity. So it's really a wonderful privilege to be here.
Thank you so much. That's so nice to know. I didn't know that. Anyway, yeah. So here, should we dive right into our interesting discussion?
Yes. Let's do it.
Just to get some background. So we're you're my senior from school. So we're probably around the same age, but you're my senior from school, and so we have these similar circles and groups, right? So even though we have not been in direct contact for all these years, but I think somewhere you do pick up things, and when I heard that you were doing so well in your and breaking these ceilings, I guess to say. So I'm very impressed. It was a few years ago, and since then I've always, I've always somewhere at the back of my head wanted to connect more with you. And when I was doing this March series, just suddenly I was like, Shabnam, I have to talk to you. So that's that. So I think let's start with education, because you are in the education sector, right?
Yes.
So what education mean to you?
So, I think that much of education these days, I mean, a big way in which people understand education nowadays is really thinking about, you know, literacy skills and the academic enterprise, right? Like just going through a schooling process and then getting, whatever degrees, credentials, going through all the motions, and then getting a job. So, notions of education are really kind of defined as an academic enterprise. But really what excites me is this notion that education is actually a process of becoming conscious, right? That through those academic skills, through reading and writing, through this process of going through educational systems, that really the ultimate purpose is to become conscious as a human being, to be able to understand our realities, to be able to analyze different possibilities within that, and then to contribute in some way, not only to your own advancement but to the advancement of society. And I think that notion of education, which is of course individual growth, individual advancement, but also this sense of it's much bigger, it's about how we learn to live in this world, is really what excites me about education. And that's how I define it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a way, because education does empower you to, have a 360-degree control of things, right?
Yes.
Life, and it's not just about reading and writing. But when we were growing up, education, I feel the concept of education was very different from today.
Very true.
In traditional sense, it meant being able to read, write, getting scores.
Yes.
You get a first division, you get 100, how much? And that basically goes on to say, okay, get a job. Are you going to be a doctor, an engineer, or a teacher, or whatever? It's just, but these days, I think the world is really changing, and opportunities are different as well, right?
That's right. That's right.
How so from where we, and especially why don't you tell us about your a little bit more about yourself before going into this? So where were you born, or where did you grow up, school, or just a brief journey from birth to now, I guess.
Sure. I'll try to do that really briefly.
Yeah.
So I was born in Nepal, of course, grew up in Nepal. But, my upbringing was slightly different because my father's father was from Nepal, but my mother was from Iran. So I grew up bicultural in Nepal, which was an unusual experience at that time, right? It still wasn't very common to have, Nepalis marrying outside of their nationality. So that was the experience. And of course, our shared experience, like you said, was going to St. Mary's School, and the number of years that we had there. Anyway, long story short, I came to the US to pursue my undergraduate degree. Went to college, then decided I really wanted to go to graduate school my interest in education was just starting to emerge, and I was thinking, gosh, I really want to go to graduate school to learn more about this connection between education and social change. Like, that was really what excited me. And I went to graduate school. I came here to the Bay Area. I went to UC Berkeley to do my graduate schooling. And while I was there, always thought, okay, I'll do this PhD and then I'll go back to Nepal, was my plan. Right. But while I was in university, I met my now husband, and plans changed. So since then, I've been living in San Francisco, working at the University of San Francisco. And, you know, it's wonderful to still have very strong connections to Nepal. And we try to go back every so often. Of course, my parents are still there. All my good friends that I grew up with are still there. So my
And
heart is very much tied to Nepal. And actually, with this pandemic, it's been really hard not to be able to go back. Challenges with racism and racial injustice. So there's so many examples of ways in which we have to change in order for the world to be different. And so that notion of this pandemic, that seeing it as this portal that we can move through and come out in a different way, is I thought was really timely and beautiful.
yes, it is very, let's say again, beautiful way of putting it. And I feel every one of us has been challenged. We never thought it was coming. We never knew it was coming. No one was prepared for it. But at the same time, like 1 year later, now I'm thinking like human beings are very resilient, and we learn how to adjust and make our way around. So,
Right.
and now with the vaccine coming up and all, I hope, yeah, hope we're coming to the end of this, all this whatever going on, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right,
that's
exactly.
interesting to know your to know about things on your side as well. And okay, so we were talking about your journey. I am going to jump back there again. I took a break.
Yes.
And then, anyways, so you said you did, like, I know it as well. Like, you did your schooling, your up to high schooling in Nepal, and then you moved to the US, right? So for people, for me, I studied in Nepal and India, so I don't have that experience. But how was the experience then, and what would change now when you move from having a basic education from Nepal and moving on to the US system and things like that, right? How were you?
Sorry, Kajal, what was the last part?
So your jump or change of your journey from being from going from a basic education in Nepal to moving on to higher studies in the US. Number one, as because the systems are different. Number two, being Nepali. At number three, being a woman. And number four is that to now. What would have experience, and would it still be the same, or would it be different for someone who's doing it now, right?
Yes, no. Such a great question. Let's see. I mean, obviously, I think at the beginning, I mean, still now, there are elements of life in the US that always surprise me, right? In some ways, yes, the education system we went through in Nepal, you know, there are many things that I think we gained from that, and then there's some things that we didn't have experience with, like, you know, speaking our minds or thinking critically, or, you know, like those types of things. I feel like we had less opportunities to do that. And so coming to the US and being in classrooms where, you know, you had to express your full analysis of something was always very challenging. In college, I remember being very quiet and, you know, just listening and being scared to talk. Like all of those things. So I feel like system-wise, there was you know, I had to really train myself in terms of learning how to succeed here. But then you also mentioned like being a woman and so on. And that's a challenge I find even now, you know, as a dean. I think one of the questions you had was like, you know, being a first female dean, like, what are the experiences and what would you, you know, what are those challenges? And there are definitely a lot of assumptions, right, around women. But even more so if you're a woman who's not, you know, a white woman here in the US, or like from a very mainstream experience. So there's always this additional pressure, I feel like, to perform well, to prove yourself, to be able to show people certain things, you know, because you know that they're coming from assumptions that are not necessarily coming from a place of strength or encouragement or understanding. So I remember actually, you know, of course, as Nepalis, you know, I proudly say that we know how to be warm and hospitable. Nice. It's one of our strengths. So I remember just as I was, you know, going to be the dean, a male colleague coming and saying, but, you know, you're so nice. How are you going to, you know, say no to people? How are you going to actually tell people, you know, have difficult conversations with people? You're so nice. And so, you know, I still remember that, because this notion that, you know, if you're nice, you won't be effective. Or in order to be effective, you have to be very hard-nosed and aggressive. You know, these are the types of notions that I always try to shake.
So how do you become successful still?
Exactly.
Be nice and do what you do. How do you do that?
Well, it's not always easy. But I feel like these aren't two polar ends of you know, behavioral. They're not in contradiction with one another. I think that this is exactly what we need to do as women, is change the way in which people understand how things can be done too.
Exactly.
You know, I have to make very difficult decisions all the time. Difficult decisions regarding personnel, difficult decisions around budget, difficult decisions everywhere. But I think there's a way of doing it where you know, approach people, you talk to people, you make them understand the, you know, circumstances, and then you can still make those difficult decisions. But I think there's a way in which people then respect the process or understand the process differently. And I think this is something that, at least in my experience, women do particularly well. And so I think that's how I've always done it, you know, that nothing's going to be easy ever, but I think, you know, it's not always about the outcome. It's often about how you get there. It's about the process. And I think if you engage in good processes, the outcome may still be the same, but the way in which people experience the outcome is different. So
very true. Yeah. When you just said Nepalese people are very nice in general, they are and warm-hearted, and you know, it's just us, right? I actually, about 2 or 3 months ago, I actually had the same question. Not for me, but one very good friend who's a non-Nepali, and she asked me the same question regarding my husband. So she, so nice, he's so nice. How does he even be where he is, and the work he does, being so nice? Because she comes from the same background. They're from financial, like banks and all, right? And wow, he's so nice. I can't understand how he's there, like where he is and doing what he does. And I said, I have never thought of it like that. Doing your job and being nice, you know what you just said.
Exactly.
When you were saying, my friend who asked me a few months ago, exactly the same question.
Exactly.
What you do, I mean, being nice is even like, it's हाम्रो नेपालीमा सुनमा सुगन्ध भन्छ.
No, exactly.
More your job, right?
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
So Shabnam, can I ask you, what inspired to pursue your career in education? Did it come from family? Did it come from outside? Did it come after you moved to the US? Something like, what inspired to go into education?
Yeah, that's a great question. So of course, one inspiration was actually growing up in Nepal. Okay? And specifically during the time we were growing up, which was, you know, when all those development initiatives were happening in Nepal, and there was a lot of emphasis placed on education, on literacy, on girls' education. So that was just, you know, it was big at the time. So I always had this curiosity, right, about why do they necessarily think that education is so important in, you know, pursuing, you know, in trying to be developed, trying to bring about social change.
Right.
So that was always a curiosity, and I often wondered about that. Because, you know, we would see all the distinctions too, right? We had the opportunity to go to a really good school in Kathmandu. And we would see other schools, right? Some of the other government schools, or that weren't quite the same. Or, you know, then you'd go into rural parts of Nepal and you'd see something completely different. So those distinctions, and still this emphasis on schooling alone, was always a curiosity for me. So I was interested in that. I was interested in development studies. And then also from my mother's side, my grandmother was an educator. My mother was an educator. So there was that side of education too. You know, I saw the beauty of education from educators' perspective, and their love for education, their love for students, and commitment. So both of these things, you know, I did my undergraduate studies in psychology, and at that time, I came to this place where I thought, oh, really what I want to study further is this relationship, particularly between education and social change. Like, what is it that about education that leads to change?
Yes.
So that's really what inspired me to go into education.
Right,
Um,
right.
but you know, at various points I thought I'd do different things. At one point I thought I want to teach, and then I tried teaching young kids and I was like, okay, this is not for me. Then I experienced teaching at the university level, and I loved that. I really liked teaching adult students. So
Right.
you know, I've also tried different things, and then came to a place where I thought, okay, this is something really exciting. And the reason why I really am interested in university education, to be specific, is because I really feel like at this level, it's not only about acquiring knowledge. You know, it's not just about learning things. I feel like, you know, at the university level, people also are able to produce new knowledge, right? Whether you're writing papers or doing a thesis or whatever, doing research, you're actually investigating reality and producing new knowledge that hopefully will increase our awareness about various aspects of society. So that's really exciting for me.
So yeah, that is true. Like it is different at different levels, and at university level, basically, it's more challenging, and I guess people are doing a lot more. But then something just came to my head that I guess again it depends from people to people, person to person. The challenges for you, you took it as, oh, that's exciting, and this for some, oh, that's too much work. I really don't want to do it.
Right.
You know, it is so.
It's true.
I was talking to someone yesterday about challenges, and you know, so we and I was basically we were basically discussing like, when you are so comfortable where you are and everything is so easy, for some it might be like, oh my God, you know, I am so comfortable, I like it, I love it, and you know, I don't like challenge, and this is where I want to be, and this is what I need. And for some, they're like, okay, I want the next challenge. You know? So I think like where you are, it also kind of shows for me, yeah, you love your challenge, why you kept going until where you are, and probably tomorrow you keep going through, right? So we see now if we, Shabnam, shall we do that?
Sure.
A lot of people who have joined us, thank you for joining, and I hope you're enjoying the life. If you have any questions, please do put it in. Oh, Luna, hello. So Luna says pretty deep, I guess. Thank you, Luna, for thank you. Love, we're very pretty Mangalsutra talking about.
Their jewelry.
Thank you. Yes. And Shreshtapi says she's pretty. I think they are talking about you. She's very pretty. I've always found her pretty since high school. I mean, days.
You're so sweet. You should know that this is the end of a day for us, and it's dark outside. So I appreciate the compliment.
We are in complete opposite. So this is now actually sleeping time for Shabnam. Thank you for this again. And we are big fans from Azad.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, and then what do we have next? Oh, I can see so many familiar faces as well. Thanks for joining us. Suraj says, great conversation. Do you teach along with administrative aspect of your role? That would be great to hear from you, the role of a dean. So what does it take to be a dean? Like what's the typical day in the life of Shabnam look like as a dean, Shabnam the dean?
Sure. So, first, maybe I'll just answer the first question, which was, do I still teach? And unfortunately, I don't. And that's really sad. I really miss being in the classroom. So I do ask, I ask my colleagues, like, invite me as a guest speaker because I still get to interact with
Yeah.
students. So, life or day in my life. So, of course, I'm a dean and I'm a mom of two kids,
Yeah.
ages,
Beautiful.
thank you, ages 14 and 11. And then I'm also involved in various things outside of the university. So, of course, during the pandemic, a typical day has been, everyone at home, waking up, getting on Zoom, being on Zoom calls all day, and then ending the day. But
Right.
but pre-pandemic, I would say that I would wake up, prepare the kids for school, always kind of rushing into the car to get them to school on time. And then I'd go to work and, be a dean. And the work of a dean is, essentially you oversee a whole unit, right? So I'm the dean of the School of Education. And so the School of Education at the university has about 1,200 students, 1,200 students, and we have 5 different campuses. So we have one in San Francisco and then a few in the Bay Area. So all of those campuses I oversee. And then we have full-time faculty, we have part-time faculty, and we have staff. So I'm responsible for the functioning of all of those. And, then we have about 25 programs in education. So people often think when I say, education, that we're just training teachers, but there's so much in education. So we have programs in educational leadership, that is training leaders in education. We have a program in international and multicultural education. We have educational technology, special education, teacher education. So it's a broad range of programs. And so, making sure that the curriculum is up to date and following all the standards, like that's also something I have to oversee. And then, there are a lot of kind of administrative aspects of that work as well. So fundraising for, scholarships for students and those kinds of things. Always kind of thinking about enrollment, the finances of the school, making sure that we're healthy. So all of those functions, and then strategic planning, like thinking into the future and planning. So all of those things fall under the work of a dean. So
wow, that's a lot of things in your plate.
it's a lot, but I work with good people who make it easy to do the work.
Yeah. It's very important to have a good team, right? And like in any kind of
exactly,
big or small, but teamwork is very important. Well, that's so. Another question: how do you see education changing in developed world as well as in Nepal?
How do you see educate? So that's a good question too. One of the notions that I feel like the pandemic has disrupted and changed is this whole idea of the third world, developing world versus the first world,
Disrupted.
Because I feel like, again, these notions of, some countries being more backwards than others and so on and so forth. The pandemic disrupted all the countries, regardless. And some of the countries that were most hard hit were actually what we consider first world countries, right? Like the US.
Yes.
And so in many ways, I think this allowed us to see the deeper dysfunctions of even what we uphold as, the model for how to be. So that, I think that itself is
Yeah.
I worry that we're rushing to go back into just, kind of life as it used to be pre-pandemic, and that's really not hopefully not what happens. Yeah.
At this point, I feel like there is no like going back, going back or like
Yeah.
just like picking it up where we were pandemic and moving on, because so much happened and our experiences have changed the way we feel, the way we are thinking, the way we are, for the for the same thing. We know if we were thinking for the same problem, if we pre-pandemic we were thinking like two ways of solving. Now I feel pandemic has forced us to think from like four ways maybe, and
Yes, exactly.
options we know is available is more, and probably the uh, the decisions we make will also be slightly different, or I don't know. That's how I feel anyway. And talking
Yeah.
about um, you know developed or developing or more 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 or having less, things like that. I just wanted to, it made me something popped up in mind,
Yes.
touch on that. Like my father-in-law, he is retired early because he wanted to play his part and help in bringing up society or whatever it is, right? And he actually is working in the education field as well,
Mhm.
and he went back to his village in Khotan, which is pretty remote place in Nepal, and started doing something there since I think about 20 years ago, and actually phenomenal. That's something for another day. But one thing that amazed me during pandemic was like for people in Kathmandu going to all the schools, or even in places, I don't know, for people in Hong Kong, my kids going to all these fancy schools in Hong Kong or in the US or wherever, everything came to a standstill for a while.
Yeah.
Everything and everyone was like, okay, what, you don't know what hit you, and everything was standstill. And even later, most of the schooling for the last whole year in online, where we had like person to person contact for a long time, and kids are just sitting in front of, which is great because at least we still managed to do something. But the thing I wanted to share in Khotan, where we have about 150 kids, my father-in-law is as a we have a foundation, and there are 150 kids in the foundation that we are helping. Not one day, they did not stop one day. Everything went as normal, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. There has been no change. I mean,
So interesting.
a big change for them.
Yeah.
So that was like, I mean, very surprising, and also I realized and understood so many things at so many different levels.
Mhm.
Um, wanted to share that for them. It did not. I mean, nothing changed.
Yeah, that's amazing.
My
Well,
God, all my kids going to these fancy schools and still having to stay home, and these kids are just going regularly. But
well, I
anyway,
think, yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, Kajal. Thank you for sharing that story, because so much of it is also based on values, what we have come to value as societies. So, for example, even this concept, right, of social distancing that we started learning earlier on in the pandemic, it's, thinking that uh, this notion that we all need to distance ourselves physically, not just to protect ourselves, but because it protects other people and people who are more vulnerable.
yeah,
And I remember what a hard time we were having in the US with that concept.
right.
People were saying, wait, why do I have to do that? And, this sense of individuality and individualism was so high, and
Sometimes think,
we saw people resisting. But when I talked to my parents in Nepal, it seemed like immediately they figured out, how to go to the market and be social distanced, and how to do these things in a way where it really impacted other people well. So that's what I mean, like
Yeah.
and with your example, we see how these notions we've held on to for a long time of what constitutes advanced societies versus, you know, not as advanced societies, or what constitutes developed versus underdeveloped. Of course there's a financial aspect of this, but you know, it's shaken up all our assumptions in a very healthy way, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so getting back to you, you know that a lot of, like, even me, I would, you know, I have young girls growing up. My daughters are there, and I really like, you know, to get some. Uh, no, not like to get some. Actually, let's just say that, you know, I like exposing them to role models, females who've actually who are doing something. It can be anything, you know, different fields. It doesn't have to be education or this or that, but it's really nice, and for me also to know what women are doing now, right? So, and I'm sure there's a lot of young women out there, Nepalese and international, would love to hear from you. What advice would you give to them at this point? Let's say people who are point like I don't know, maybe going to school, college, or even women like kids.
That's yeah, you know, I don't know how much I'm in a position to give advice, but I can speak from maybe a place of experience, and really say that first and foremost, you know, pursue something you feel passionate about, right? Like, again, like society has so many expectations about what's worthy of pursuing and what's not, but really it's important for us to think like, what do I really feel like I'm going to do well at, you know, and so that's an important consideration. But I also feel like it's important to also think about, you know, what will I do that'll impact others in a positive way too. I think that consideration moving forward, I mean, we keep talking about the pandemic and the possibilities here onward, but that notion is really important. And then, you know, and then one thing that I think is so important is like to be yourself. You know, I see a lot of young women especially feeling like they have to change in certain ways to fit the mold, to follow certain expectations, to you know, I also have a young daughter, like, you know, there's so many kind of standards of what it means to be successful, what it means to be beautiful, what it means to be, you know, so many things. And I feel like ultimately the secret actually to success is being very much like grounded in your own values and things you believe in, you know, and being true to who you are. That's so important. And you know, I always think about that in my own life, that, you know, there are probably ways in which I could do much more in one area or another, but you know, if it doesn't feel authentic to who I am, if certain expectations don't feel like they're true to who I am, that, you know, I could do it, but it just doesn't feel right. I choose not to do it.
Understand what you're saying, because I feel the exact same way too. So, number one is the, like you said, passion. If you're not passionate about it, what is like the meaning in it, like doing something? And the other thing, if you're not true to yourself and you're just for the heck of it, again, anyone will reach anywhere, you know, where you're supposed to, if that is not there as well. That's so true. So yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I will. I think so. I would like to jump into some jewelry questions for you, since I am a jeweler. So, Shabnam, your style, Shabnam. Let's hear about something lighter now, jewelry.
Okay. Sorry. Kajal, you broke up a little bit. Sorry. That this is
No,
all the
it's
technological challenges. I heard something fun and then I missed what you said.
okay. Something fun is I wanted to know what is your jewelry style? What's Shabnam?
Oh, my jewelry style.
All this, that, I don't know.
Yes.
Style.
You know, yeah, no, it's interesting. I love jewelry. But funny enough, like I don't wear a lot of jewelry, but what I do have a few standard pieces. And so when I look at other people, I love these bold pieces, you know, colorful. Like I love it when people express themselves with jewelry. You know, I love this idea that you can adorn yourself, you can beautify yourself with jewelry. I love it. But for me, my style is usually the more delicate. Like, you know, I just wear this little ring or like the kind of thin necklaces. These are my standard.
Right.
For you today, I wore pearls, but
beautiful woman, and you look beautiful in your pearls. I love pearls.
Thank you. But generally, that's my style. I love gold jewelry, but very delicate designs.
Yeah. Since if it's every day and everything, like delicate works good. It you you looking nice and help. I guess it lets you do things, right?
Yes.
So I'm a jeweler, but I also usually I'm not too heavy on everyday jewelry. I go very light, and these days I like to stack up my wrists a bit. But
yes, let me see your bangles. Oh, beautiful! I like that.
Golden Chelsea pearls bracelet.
Yes.
Something. This one I made for myself when I first started doing jewelry, and it stayed in the cupboard for 2 years. But then I thought, what's the point of making something if I don't wear it?
That's beautiful. I love it.
Ears and neck usually go with light. Today I just decided to wear this, but of course it depends on day to day.
It's beautiful, Kajal. Your designs are beautiful.
Thank you so much, Shabnam. That's I really appreciate coming from you. And also, you know, jewelry is such a big part of Nepali culture. Even when I talk to my friends who are not Nepali, sometimes I do end up explaining like how in Nepal jewelry plays such a a big role in most of our lives, right? For you, so how is it for you, like when you think of jewelry and being a Nepali woman? Has it made it, does it have any impact on you like that?
It does. So I especially like wearing bangles. So I usually have a set of gold bangles that I wear. That's my usual.
Okay.
To me, that really feels Nepali to me. You know, this sense of like the sound,
yes, yeah, that's
all
right.
of it. I don't know if you noticed, but I also have a nose ring.
I can see. I didn't actually see it, but
yes. So I've had this for a while, and of course that to me symbolizes. Of course, it's fashion too. A lot of people have it, but to me, it's part of my Nepaliness. So yeah, now there's a way in which culture gets carried on through jewelry, and that's really important. I think even if we think about Nepali designs, there's so much about specific, like if we think about the gold bracelets and so on, there's so many of those designs are very distinct and connected even to certain histories and ethnic groups in Nepal.
Yes.
I think that expression of culture is really important to carry on through generations.
Yes, true. That's true. I mean, it also helps you to show who you are, right, in different ways, and
yes.
it can be culturally or it can be personally also. You express yourself in various ways. Can also be one of them. Anyway, so now I think I had a really, really amazing conversation with you, and got to know so much more things, and I hope our viewers enjoyed it too. This will up in the IGTV for those who couldn't catch us, maybe due to time or anything else. But
Okay.
I do want to do something with you before we
Sure.
before. So I put a list. So I'm looking at this. I'm gonna give you some rapid fire questions,
Okay.
and you have to just answer without.
But again, this is going to show my age. I love music from the 80s.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
love so many of those bands and the songs. And so whenever 80s music comes on, most likely I'll know the words to it.
Yeah, I mostly it was like when we grew up. It was first the pop and then the rock. So
Yes,
all the pop and rock musics from, I mean, the last 30 years or whatever, right?
exactly, exactly. And I feel like I still know that.
Uh, okay, as a mom, what movie have kids made you watch time and time again, like while they were?
Yeah. I
There's
mean,
one,
of course, my kids are bigger now, so they
yes.
each watch their own thing. But I guess the one that I remember watching over and over was Frozen.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, like it, the first one came out when my daughter was around that age, and then that I feel like that just kept coming over
I
and over again.
all the girls that time became Elsa and Anna.
Exactly.
I do it they, every time, and they knew the
Yes.
heart and always.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
in our house, also Despicable Me. I remember watching many times.
Right.
Madagascar. So a few of those.
When if you go back when they were smaller,
um, sorry.
when they were younger, like maybe like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years old, like
Yeah.
do they have a favorite nursery rhyme or whatever the thing or
We used to watch Sesame Street a lot when they were that age.
right?
So I still remember the characters, the specific episodes that I really liked because
Mm.
and recently actually my kids were remember that Cookie Monster song, and so
Yeah, I, I know that too. I know that too.
yeah.
Those are, so when I had my kids, both these girls were born in Tokyo, so I ended up watching a lot of Japanese nursery rhymes and stuff. I know those as well. It's funny, like
Yeah,
we kids again, right? Anyway,
exactly.
okay, you did quite well. I think, yeah,
Sorry, not I didn't get high marks on the actors and actresses.
that's fine. I was just trying to see, okay, it's Shabnam the educator. Let me see your movie.
That was good. That was very good.
That was fun.
Keeping me on my toes.
Yes. So maybe you can go back and look at these questions and see where you didn't do well, and perhaps have to take a test again.
Better yet, send me some recommendations for
Anyway,
movies.
okay, thank you so much, Ram. We really had a good time. I want you to awake much longer. I know it's really late at night.
No, no,
I don't know, maybe your kids and your husband is waiting for you or something, but
not at all.
to you. And I hope our viewers will get something out of our life together. I am sure because I have already gotten it actually. So this is just a part of a very small interview from my side to you know to keep things relevant here at KN.
Yes.
It is about, but it is also much bigger and much bigger than just jewelry, right?
Yeah.
And I am really thankful to have you in our live today. Thank you very much, and good night, Shabnam.
Of course. Such
And
a pleasure.
our viewers who have watched us today, and if you are catching us up later, welcome and thank you to those people too. So,
Thank
okay.
you so
And,
much for.
and Shabnam, do you want to say anything in the end or yeah, to our viewers?
No, I really thank you so much for joining us and for being a part of this conversation, and to you, Kajal, for speaking of role models. I think it's beautiful how you've you know been so entrepreneurial and bringing both art and beauty together in creating these beautiful pieces that you have been. So I really respect what you've done, and really am grateful for this opportunity to talk to you and to reconnect with you after so many years. So thank you so much.
Okay, good night. Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye, everyone.